First, let me thank the leader of government business for delivering the state of the nation, this business statement for the ensuing week. One issue that I wanted clarity on has already been dealt with by my respected colleague, Honorable Habib. That has to do with the State of the Nation address that we wanted to know when this will be happening in this House. But I'm sure the majority leader will have an opportunity to deal with this. Mr. Speaker, in course of the week, there were certain matters that I believe leader of government business must take steps to address same. That has to do with revocation of appointment. We hear of
Honorable Minority Leader.
No, it's not that
I said you raised it at the time.
Yes, it's
very
not that one.
Very well.
The Speaker, I'm always guided. I won't act in bad faith, please. I won't act in bad faith. Mr. Speaker, we heard of Honorable Bauer being appointed as acting chief executive of GMPC. Then he's been reassigned now to GOIL. Again, we heard of Honorable Hanabisiu going to Common Fund. Then now we hear Honorable Mr. Ishmael Yamson's son is going there. GIPC, we had Benis McAfee being appointed there, and then we hear now they've changed it to Simon Maji. And Mr. Speaker, the president has just assumed office. The president has just assumed office. It appears as though what is happening is Asedu Ketia Fabakon, Julio Zebra Fabakon, Jen Chempe, Ofabakwa, Mei Bako, Ofabakwa, Mei Bako. Se Obieni Njia, Masisano. We have, Mr. Speaker, the president should not be sent into a lame duck rather too quickly. The president is just forming his government. This posture doesn't give a good signal to the investment community. And governance will require that there must be some certainty, because GIPC is a very important state agency that drives investment into the country.
Honorable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, normally, you see, you should let me finish. Then he can make his point. This point of, Mr. Speaker, don't encourage it. Don't encourage it.
But you let me hear him.
Speaker, I wouldn't have done this, but I had to, because the minority leader, in making his submissions, spoke tree and said, I said, don't get here for back. And Mr. Speaker, I believe that. No. I believe that, Mr. Speaker. Why? Are you the Speaker? The Speaker,
Honorable Deputy Whip. Honorable Deputy Whip, with all due respect, I do not expect you to get up without having the floor and begin to speak.
Mr. Speaker, my leader, the minority leader, knows better. He can make his point without drawing my national chairman's name, because my national chairman is not an appointor of the persons he has referenced in his submission. So, with all due respect to him, he should withdraw that aspect of the submission that drew in my national chairman. With all due respect, I thank
Honorable Minority Leader, just take note.
Very well. I've taken note. So, Mr. Speaker, we are aware in this house this history of Fonka games. That's why I was trying to caution the Fonka games era. So I'm just being very careful here that we know Mr. President has one term. He's just assumed office. We need all of us must support Mr. President, especially his own party members. Because if you make an appointment today, you reassign. So for instance, we have 4 more deputy ministers that are to be appointed, nominated, to add up to make it the 60. It's still delaying. We don't know what is happening. Yeah, 50 says you need to add 4 to make it 60. Mr. Speaker, we don't want a situation where we start the vetting, the 14 that we have, we start, and at the tail end, something will come up. So I want the leader of government business to ferry this to the presidency, encourage the presidency to, as a matter of urgency, nominate these additional 4 deputy ministers. We have communication and digitalization pending. We have foreign affairs deputy pending. We have health pending. We have transport pending. Mr. Speaker, and we know that there are very prominent members of this house, very senior, who have still not been considered. We will not repeat it, but there is anxiety on the front bench and the back bench of the majority. So leader of government business must bring certainty to this matter by dealing with it. Mr. Speaker, the second issue had to do with government suspension of the implementation of National Roads Authority Act, which sought to restructure the management of roads and highways. And Mr. Speaker, indeed, per Act 118, this House passed the law in July 2024 to streamline the management of Ghana roads infrastructure by merging Ghana Highways Authority, Department of Urban Roads, and the Department of Federal Roads into a unified entity for improved coordination and management. However, Mr. Speaker, the announcement of the suspension of this act to allow for stakeholder engagement, Mr. Speaker, is unknown to governance. I believe this government came into office with its own manifesto. Today, a committee here, a committee there, as if you are now enacting your manifesto. There is a law. That law must be implemented. You cannot, on your own at the ministry, suspend the law and say you want to engage in further stakeholder consultation. It does not happen. We are giving a rather negative signal. So I want a leader of government business to take this matter up and advise government so that government may not find itself in any illegality. Mr. Speaker, the third issue has to do with a communication by the spokesperson to the President and Minister of State in charge of government communications. This is dated the 11th of February 2025, and it reads, President Mahama directs Finance Minister to urgently bridge U.S. aid funding gap. Mr. Speaker, basically, this public notice is directing Dr. Kassiel Atufos, the Finance Minister, to find ways of filling that gap of 156 million as a result of U.S. aid's suspension of support. Mr. Speaker, how can the Finance Minister be directed to do such a thing without at least a certain level of engagement with Parliament? The Finance Minister must be directed to engage Parliament. He cannot on his own. Mr. Speaker, Parliament is an important governance institution. So when we see letters flying from Jubilee to Finance, and then you have it being read in the media, Mr. Speaker, what is the use of Parliament? What is the use of Parliament? So, Mr. Speaker, this is an important matter for leader of government business to take up. And we want the Minister of Finance to, as a matter of urgency, appear before us to brief us on the steps he is taking pursuant to this directive. He cannot do things on his own. This is the people's chamber. The people's representatives must have the opportunity of knowing what is happening at the Finance Ministry. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of violence, Mr. Speaker, we raised this matter here. The leader of government business assured us, that is Dr. Kasiel Atuforse, the majority leader, as he then was, assured the House that he would engage government and state security agencies to enforce the law and not to allow lawlessness in our country. Mr. Speaker, the Council of State elections that took place, we all heard what happened in Ashanti region. Mr. Speaker, it is important for all of us to come to terms with the fact that peace is a sine qua non. We need peace in this country for our democracy. We cannot allow people who are always disappointed in the outcome of an election to introduce violence. It will not help us. Maybe today it's favoring somebody, but tomorrow it may go against all of us. Let's be careful about that. And I want the Minister of Interior to be programmed by the majority leader to come and explain to us steps that are being taken to ensure that our laws are enforced. What happened in Kumasi, in Ashanti region, is most regrettable, very unacceptable. That during the counting, then some tax enter the enclave where the counting is taking place, overpower the police. Mr. Speaker, this is serious. You have plainclothes, ordinary citizens, not armed, overpowering police. Let's be careful. So the minister would have to brief us and assure us that such a thing will not be allowed to happen. Mr. Speaker, my final point on this has to do with the recent press conference held by the respected Attorney General and Minister of Justice. Mr. Speaker, again, it is within our right to know certain decisions that the Attorney General is taking in his ministry. Yes, he can hold a press conference, but he must brief the House. He is saying that without consulting Mr. President, without engaging cabinet, on his own, he has entered nolle prosequi. In other words, he is discontinuing certain criminal trials. He told the press that the president is not even aware and he is responsible, and that he is yet to prepare a cabinet memo. Mr. Speaker, this is unacceptable. I again invite the leader of government business, as part of next week's agenda, to program the learned Attorney General to come and give this House a full briefing for us to ask him the necessary questions, so that the members of Parliament who have concerns about the reasons for the nolle prosequi to have answers is very, very important.
Honorable minority leader, honorable members, order. Honorable members, order. Honorable Minority Leader, when the power of Noli Prosoquo is exercised, is it questionable?
I didn't hear you.
The power of Noli Prosoquo, when it is exercised, is it questionable?
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the question. Mr. Speaker, I would first give you a political answer and then attempt a legal answer. Mr. Speaker, we operate in a political space. All my prayer is that the Attorney General has briefed the press. He held a press conference and briefed the press. This is the chamber where the people's representatives deliberate. I am saying that the respected majority leader, as part of next week's program, because Mr. Speaker, what we are doing here is business statement. And I am saying that if the Attorney General has found it prudent to hold a press conference to brief the press, then as part of our bona fides as a parliament, the majority leader should program him to also brief the House. Mr. Speaker, he is not required to provide a reason, give a reason for, entering Noli Prosoquo. But we are saying that to the extent that he has decided to give an explanation to the media, we are the people's representative. It's only a request to the leader of government business to invite him here so that he briefs us. So that's basically the point I am making. Mr. Speaker, I'll rest my case on that for the leader to answer to some of the questions.
Honorable Minority Leader and honorable members, in Ghana, the Attorney General has a statutory power to issue a Noli Prosoquo under the Ghanaian Criminal Procedure Code 1960 Act 30 to discontinue any criminal proceedings before final judgment is made. And this is without question from anybody. So I believe when the Attorney General is programmed to come here, the House would have been questioning the Attorney General on the exercise of the power or the exercise of the authority. So,
Speaker, no, that is not, Mr. Speaker.
Please, let's tread cautiously.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, with respect, it's a good exercise. Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Minority Leader, I believe let's tread cautiously. Let's tread cautiously.
Mr. Speaker,
I just want us to trade cautiously.
We are here to learn, Mr. Speaker. We are here to learn, and you are here to also help with the process of governance, Mr. Speaker. It is not for us to question the Attorney General's discretion. I mount my request on the ground that he himself, Somoto, has engaged the press. In fact, this is the first time in our recent history that an Attorney General has invited the press to give explanation as to why he has discontinued the case. And I'm saying the right forum for this act is Parliament. I am only inviting the leader of government business. Mr. Speaker, I am only inviting the leader of government business as part of the business statement to program him. Because, Mr. Speaker, the matter is relevant because this is business statement. Business statement is to consider the business of the ensuing week. And we have good reason as a House to allow contributions after the leader has made the presentation. So in making contribution, I am urging upon the respected leader that he should consider inviting the Attorney General. That is, if it finds favor with him and with the leave of the House, that he comes
very much
to brief us. It is not enough to brief the press because this is an important national issue. Mr. Speaker, I rest my case.
Thank you. I will give the floor to the majority leader to respond. And before doing that, honourable members, let's remind ourselves that the issue under consideration is the business statement of the 6th week ending Friday, 21st February 2025. It was in relation of the said business statement we are taking comments. Honourable members, I want us to focus on it and comment as such.
Mr. Speaker, I thank honourable colleagues for drawing attention to a number of matters relating to the business program for next week. Let me start with the issue of appointments raised by the minority leader. Mr. Speaker, I believe the minority leader is aware of Article 79 of the Constitution. Article 79 of the Constitution says the President may, in consultation with a Minister of State and with the prior approval of Parliament, appoint one or more deputy ministers. So the appointment of a deputy minister has to be done in consultation with the substantive minister. So the nominations for deputy ministers cannot come at the same speed that those of the substantive ministers came. So I hope that you are educated a little now. You appreciate it. So now that the ministers are in place, the president has to take his time, consult their sector ministers, and agree with them on the deputy ministers, and now bring the nominations. So take your time. The president is consulting his ministers, and after the consultation, he will bring you the names. So I hope you understand. Now, the issue of other agencies, if you notice, all the letters that went out to the people appointed to the agencies didn't appoint them as substantive officials. They have been asked to go and act. They have been asked to go and act. If you recall, before we passed the Transition Act, we had a difficulty where, like, the former Minister for Defense tried to convince this House the other day. The midnight of the 7th, the government ceases to exist, and there's a vacuum. So very often what you do is to send people to go and act, and then subsequently you make up your mind where you want people to serve, then you do some realignment. And that is what is happening. So when somebody is asked to go and act somewhere, he is not appointed as a substantive head of that institution. So that gives the president the liberty, when he now settles down, to realign and say, okay, you move to this organization, you move to this other organization. That is where you may then be asked to serve as a substantive head or CEO of that agency. So what is happening is not out of the ordinary. It is normal. And that is what is expected when there is a transition. On the Roads Authority, the other day it was raised in this House, and the Minister for Roads was here. And I inquired, and it turned out that the workers in the ministry had petitioned the Labour Commission. And the Labour Commission had gone into the matter, and they then decided that the implementation of the act should be suspended pending their resolution of the labor issues. So this was a decision of the Labour Commission. It had nothing to do with the minister. In fact, the minister hadn't gotten to the ministry yet when the Labour Commission took that decision. And I saw a copy of the decision of the Labour Commission. So it is not this government that has decided to suspend the implementation of the act. It is the Labour Commission that has directed that the implementation of the act be suspended in the interim while they resolve the labor issue, because in the opinion of the Labor Commission, there were some appointments, some promotions, and some labor issues that will make it difficult for the provisions of the act to be implemented. So that is a decision of the Labor Commission and not the government of the NDC. And then on the issue of USAID funding gap, I think the president can direct the finance minister that he should find a way of dealing with the gap that will be created because of the suspension of USAID funding coming into the country. I am told that last year, USAID funding alone was about 150 million United States dollars. So if that is suspended by the US government or it is taken out of what will normally come to us, the finance minister, in preparing his budget, has to find a way of making sure that he makes provision so that those activities that were funded by the USAID can now be dealt with by the government of Ghana. For instance, some of the USAID funding goes into things like supporting, antiretroviral medications. There are a number of activities that they support. And so if they stop funding those activities, malaria-related matters, I think the other day, the former Minister for Finance made a statement in which he outlined areas where normally the government of Ghana gets support through USAID to fund. And so if we are losing that, then we have to make provision for some way of funding those activities. And so when the president writes or communicates to the finance minister to make provision for the funding gap that will be created, it is to draw his attention so that in the budget that he will be presenting to this parliament, he will make sure that he takes care of all those activities. Indeed, this is a very responsive government. This is a statement made by your own former Minister of Finance. He drew attention to the fact that there will be a funding gap. He was rather trying to convince this government not to do away with certain taxes that we promised to do away with. That was what he proposed. But we rejected that and said, don't worry, we'll find a way of dealing with that funding gap that will be created. We will not continue with certain draconian taxes that we disagree with, no matter what funding gap is going to be created by USAID funding not coming into the country. On the issue of sitting in the afternoons, I have always been an advocate of sitting in the afternoons because I've also gone around West Africa and I have noticed that a lot of parliaments tend to sit in the afternoon so that they allow professionals like lawyers, doctors, and etc., and then business people to go and practice. Because what happens is that when people get elected as members of parliament and they are lawyers, the legal profession, loses the services of those people. Because we're supposed to sit at 10 o'clock, and then you can't go to court, and then the doctors can't go to the hospitals. By the time they close, it's too late, they are tired, and all that. So in some jurisdictions, they start sitting in the afternoon, and then they close very late into the night, and then they get work done. So I have no issue, except that it's a matter that should be discussed with the Speaker, and it's going to be the Speaker's decision. It cannot be Business Committee decision, because our standing orders make provision for us sitting at 10 a.m. And so Business Committee will continue to program on the assumption that sitting will start at 10 a.m. in the morning. House Committee, we discussed it, and we indicated that next week we'll present the report of the Committee of Selection so that we can constitute the various committees. And so House Committee is one of those committees that the standing orders make provision for, and so it will also be part of the report, and therefore the House Committee will come into existence. The Minister for Finance has indicated that he would want to present the budget either on the 10th or 11th, but I told him the 10th is a Monday, and since we don't sit on Mondays, 11 March is a more appropriate date for him to present the budget. So 11 March is the date that the minister proposes to bring the budget to us for consideration. The Office of the President has also communicated that the State of the Nation address, if we are available as a House, can be presented on the 27th of February. On the 27th of February. So that is the provisional date that is the Office of President has communicated to us regarding the presentation of the State of the Nation by His Excellency the President. I believe that the minority leader knows that there are many ways by which matters can be brought before this House. When you want the Minister for Justice and Attorney General to come to this House and answer questions about how he exercised his discretion to enter nolle prosequi, you know how to come to this House. You can ask a question. You can ask a question to the minister. He is a minister, in addition to being the Attorney General. So his responsibility as a minister is to this House. His exercise of his powers as Attorney General, those are discretionary powers that he has exercised. And so you can ask the minister a question and he will come to this House and answer those questions. You can also make a statement in this House and we can all comment on your statements. But you cannot always seek to use business statement presentation as a platform to organize a press conference. You cannot be allowed to do that. So please cease and desist. Cease and desist from continuing to try to use this platform as a platform for organizing press conferences. As for what happened in Kumasi, this House doesn't know what happened in Kumasi. If you want this House to deal with any matter that happened in Kumasi, come properly. Bring a question to the Minister for Interior. He will come and answer the questions. If it relates to the conduct of the police, he will come and answer questions. If it relates to matters of law and order in the country, he will come and answer questions. But like I said, cease and desist your conduct of always trying to use business statement time as a platform for making press conferences. We will not allow that. We will not allow you to continue. Today we indulge you. Next time, we will prevent you from making such statements on the floor of the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you. Honorable Minority Leader.